Hi everyone. It is time to talk about my birth story. Gabriel is over here eating my remains of lunch and I'm nursing. Sylvia's putting Ezra to sleep. So we're going to attempt this. Basically, I went in for an appointment on October 14th, which was a Monday, and it was my 41-week appointment. I was 41 weeks and 4 days. At my appointment, we knew that if we had gotten to that point, we were going to be scheduling my induction for the next day, and we would be doing a castor oil induction if we needed to get to that point. But she did a membrane sweep, it would have been a stretch and sweep, but I was over 5 centimeters, so there was nothing to stretch. It was just a membrane sweep. She took all my vitals, checked baby's positioning, all that good jazz. After the appointment, I had contractions consistently 5 minutes apart to 10 minutes apart on my ride home, and for a little bit after that. I think my appointment was at 1. By 3 o'clock, I was having contractions consistently every 5 minutes for a minute at a time. And that's always the threshold when they tell you to come in. But I was like, I'm waiting. I'm going to make sure it sticks around because I've had this happen so many times before with him specifically. And I waited until, I think it was 3 hours later. Yeah, at 6 o'clock-ish. At 6 o'clock, they were 4 to 5 minutes apart, still a minute long. We picked up groceries during that time. I was pumping or sitting on like the yoga ball. I was just chilling. So at 6 o'clock, they had been going for 3 hours. They were 4 to 5 minutes apart consistently, not the 10 to 5 that they were earlier in the, like after the appointment right away. Not just a solid 5 minutes. It would be, some would be less, some would be just at 5. And so I called her and I was like, okay, I know you're done with all the appointments. Before you go anywhere, this is where I'm at. Do you want to like get checked again? Like, what do you want me to do? I just want to update you and see what you want or what you think is going to be best. And she was pretty impressed. And she's like, well, if that's kind of the case of where you're at, then come on in. Come on into the birth center. I'll just go straight there. So I was like, well, it's going to take me like an hour. I brought in the boys to my parents' house and I've got to, then get all the way out there and it's like a 50-minute drive. So I was like, I'm going to get there after 7. She was like, okay, that's fine. I'll get everything ready for you. Do you know what room you want to be in? Blah, blah, blah. And so I was like, yep, okay. So I let her go, called my parents, told them that we were going to come. We kind of planned on dropping off the boys that night because we knew I was going in early for the induction. I was like, well, we're going to come now because she told me to come in. So we're going to go in right after we're done. And we went and dropped them off. And I called my friend who was recording. And then I texted my birth photographer. But I was not clear with my birth photographer that we wouldn't be there for an hour. So she got there way earlier than us. I feel really bad because she was waiting for a little while. But it was okay. It ended up being fine. After everyone was like notified, then we kind of made our way there. And we got there. And if you watched the birth video, it was really chill. The contractions weren't really painful, but they were getting more intense. They were more intense increasingly, but in a very slow fashion. So we got there, we got stuff unloaded, I did my hair. She was like, okay, as they like checked me, did all this stuff to get me like admitted. As soon as they got me admitted and everything, she told me to do a lift and tuck with my contractions, which is where you like hold and lift your stomach in to like tilt baby into like this correct downward position and align their spine. That was when I was like standing against the wall, my back straight and like holding my stomach. They also gave me a homeopathic like cramp irritant. I don't even know what to like call it. That wasn't like what the name was, but it was like a homeopathic thing to like get your body, like your uterus moving. They gave it to me every 15 minutes. It just was like a thing that you like melt under your tongue. I felt some increase. Things were staying consistent at the very least, but it wasn't like making the real progress that I wanted it to. So she suggested that we do this really, quote unquote, really uncomfortable thing where like I lay at this specific angle off of the massage bed to get baby in the correct position, like to get him to descend. And I was like, okay, it actually really felt great because it took a lot of pressure off my back, but I didn't feel any contractions throughout it except like one. We were supposed to do that for 3 contractions. We were down there for like 15-20 minutes, but I don't know. So then we started doing stairs. I did a few flights of stairs up and down, got back up to the room, had some more contractions, decided to use the peanut ball because it just wasn't moving forward. Did that. Those got more intense, but they were less frequent. And I was just irritated with myself. Like, okay, again, really, what are we doing? Trying to just, focus on relaxing. We were chatting, watching TV, chilling. And after that, the midwife came in and was like, you know what? Just try and go to sleep. You can either go home or you can stay here. It's up to you. But I think, we've done all the things to kickstart your labor. Give yourself now a chance to rest. You've been up all day, had a long day. It was almost midnight. Just go to sleep. Take a rest, see how long you can rest, and, if it comes down to it, we'll do castor oil in the morning. I decided I wanted to stay, so we all stayed, and she's like, regardless of if you go home or stay here, I'm not going anywhere, I'm going to be here, so, don't worry about it, just make the choice that's going to make you the most comfortable. So I chose to stay. I got up at like 3:55 a.m. after sleeping for it was almost 4 hours. And I felt good. I went into the bathroom because I had a contraction. Wasn't really thinking much of it. I think I had like 1 or 2 in bed. Went to the bathroom, had a couple more, went to lay back down. And when I laid back down through like 1 or 2, but they were getting a lot more uncomfortable. And I was like, okay, I need to sit on this yoga ball. And that's when I decided to wake up Gregory. It was almost an hour later, so it was like 4:55, almost 5 a.m. And I was sitting on the yoga ball. I woke up Gregory, told him what was going on. And then I had a contraction where I was like, I'm going to wake up the midwife. So I texted her because she said I could text her, call her, or whatever, or come get her. It wouldn't matter. But I wanted to just text her and hang out in the room and do my thing. I could. So I texted her and was like, hey, can you come in here? Blah, blah, blah. So she's like, yep, came right in. And she was like, I've been up for an hour, a little less than that. I'm gonna check on you, checked the baby, checked my vitals, all that good stuff. And the contractions were kind of picking up and I really wanted to take a shower. So I asked her if I could take a shower and she was like, absolutely, you take a shower. My birth photographer and videographer were sleeping or just out of the room at the time. So Gregory stood in the bathroom with me, kind of timing my contractions while I was in the shower. And they ramped up to 3 minutes apart and 1.5 minutes long. So I was like, okay, this is feeling good, whatever. It was after 5 at this point in time. And my midwife was still like, yep, we're going to try and do this around 7 a.m., do the castor oil induction to just make sure we're there. Unless we don't need it. We'll just see. Give it an hour. So we're talking in the bathroom as I'm taking a shower. Around 6 o'clock, I was like, Gregory, will you go get food? Because I'm really, really hungry. Then you can pick up this other stuff that we need. The castor oil induction. If they don't have the stuff that we need, then we can, wait a little bit longer and go to a store that will open at 8 or 7. I can't remember what time the grocery store opened. So he just ran to Quick Trip. After I got out of the shower, he left, and the birth photographer and my friend who's videoing came in and we hung out. I got checked again at some point in time and I was sitting on the yoga ball through contractions. They stayed about 3 minutes apart at that point in time. And they were a lot more intense. And I could just feel it getting closer, but I still wasn't sure. There was still this kind of I don't know if we'll need the induction or not to stay in labor. And as soon as the midwife and the assistant nurse came back in to check on me, I feel like they could kind of tell we were there. It was almost 6:30 and Gregory was not back yet. But as soon as he did get back, I asked for the birth swing, which is that blue hanging thing in my video. I knew I was going to need that. I could just kind of feel it. And I was like, okay, right before Gregory got back, I remember having a moment going, oh, he shouldn't have left. It'll be fine, right? It'll be fine. So it was at that point, 30 minutes before we were totally planning on doing the induction that we were like, okay, we don't need it. We're doing good. They were hearing good things. Everything was moving right along.
Mom, I think he's taking a break. He's taking it from this part and he's going back in.
I labored between the ball, the bouncy yoga ball, and the birthing swing for about 2 more hours. At that point, they could tell that I had asked for them to start the water at 8. By 8:30, they said it takes a half an hour to 45 minutes to fill the tub, and it was not filling that fast. And of course, it was the first cold morning, and they were like, oh, we got to figure out what's going on because the water pressure is not there. And so she put a Chuck's pad, which is like, they look like potty training pads for dogs if you've never had a baby. But if you've had a baby, you know what I'm talking about. They had one of those. She put it underneath me as I was like laboring from the swing. And it was a lot more intense. I needed some counter pressure, but it was good. I was doing deep squats pretty much the whole time. It was at that point that she told me, you know,
From
if you have to push,
doctor?
like I'm just putting this here, you know, in case if you feel like you have to push. And when she was talking about it and asking me about that, I had an emotional release at that moment because I realized that it was actually really happening. And for like 2 weeks leading up to that point, I was like, I just feel like I know I'm going to have this baby, but it's just never going to happen. It's not going to happen on its own. I'm going to need this extra assistance and all this other stuff. And I really didn't want to have a castor oil induction. Not because it was bad by any means, but just it was so much more. Any induction method that you use, like cytotoxin, castor oil, whatever it is that you're induced with, they're not normal contractions. And that kind of a labor is so different than a regular labor. And I had experienced the different contractions before. And I knew the difference and I knew I could handle it, but I just didn't want to have to because I knew I could also do it on my own. And I had just started to like doubt that. So I had this emotional release where I was just crying because I was so happy that I did it on my own. We had gotten there. I mean, I had all the, you know, induction things that we did, trying to put them into position, different movements, and all of that. And it like hit me in that moment that it was really happening and really there. And I was just so excited. Any of the like fear of labor stopping or anything that was like holding me back or inhibiting me just kind of went away. So it was just it was a good moment for me. And I think everyone else was a little worried, but I was just so happy. Which sounds not accurate, but that's totally what was going on. So after that, I think I did like 2 more contractions, 1 or 2 on the side of the tub where I was like kind of like holding onto the tub and like pulling my body back. They checked on the baby before I got in, and then I was able to get into the water finally because it was finally tall enough. I got in the tub finally, and they were like, okay, it's not like super full for you to like, you can only sit in a couple of different positions just in case because baby needs to be born under the water if you're birthing in the water. And I was like, okay. So I labored like that for a little while, and I had started pushing right as soon as I got into the tub, seeing like what was feeling right and whatever. And I didn't necessarily like feel pushy, but it was more just like we were there and we were trying to make sure baby kind of like went down more, and the contractions were super, super intense. So I was like, okay, I got to do something with this energy. So I labored in the tub for like maybe an hour, 45 minutes, something like that. Maybe it was 8 that I got into the tub. I'm not 100% on the time, except when he was actually born. It felt like I was in the tub for like an hour, but it could have been a little bit less than that. And eventually, as I was pushing, I just didn't feel like most of my pushes were effective or making much progress. She put her fingers kind of like through the contractions and the pushing, kind of in the perineal area, to keep from pushing too hard and having a premature like rupture or anything like that, or rupturing like blood vessels around like just in the whole region. And that was helpful, but it didn't, like I just didn't feel like I was making any progress, and that was frustrating because I was like, I've been in here so long and whatever, and I was like, I think I want to get out. So I walked to the bed and I laid on my side and I pushed on my side for a little while, and that felt better. I felt a lot better in terms of like I could make more progress. And the interesting thing was when I was pushing on my side, she kind of checked to see if I had like any part of my cervix left in the way, and that was like what was holding us up, which I did have a little bit of a lip on my cervix that was still kind of, she needed to hold it out of the way. So she did that, and when she did, she kind of put her fingers pushed down like on the back of like the perineum, and that's where you're supposed to push to. Having that pressure there was like, oh, okay, this is what I'm doing. And then I started to feel like I was having a lot more really effective pushes. And when my pushes were effective, it was interesting because I didn't feel pain. Like I felt the really intense pressure, and then when I went into the effective push, it was difficult to do because you like push into the wave, like push into that pain feeling. Like that was like the pressure pain feeling, push into that. And then during the rest of the push, it felt nothing. Like I could feel the baby move and there was no pain with it. And that was always when she was like, yeah, that was an effective push. Like, you're doing a good job. Like, she's verbal and encouraging, which I actually really apparently need, I discovered. And so that was like, okay, as I started to understand that and feel that and all that kind of stuff, I got a lot more confident in my pushing. And she was like, I think that I can feel like baby's head, so I'm gonna like check it out. She goes, oh no, you've got like your water bag is right there. On your next contraction, can I pop it? It will relieve a lot of the pressure that you're feeling. And I was like, oh yeah, if it's gonna do that, please pop it. So they did. And there's a shot, I think it's in the video, where it just like sprayed out all over her shoulder. And it felt like nothing. It didn't feel like anything. It didn't change my contraction intensity or anything like that. Because once you get to that point where you're really pushing and your baby is descending and your waters break, at least for me, with both of my babies, it didn't make a difference. It only made a difference when I was still in like the laboring phase. But we still weren't quite, like, she thought his head might be stuck or something might be like just kind of wonky. So she's like, I really think that you should get up and like walk to the bathroom. And I was like, I cannot walk to the bathroom. And she's like, you can walk to the bathroom. So eventually I did walk to the bathroom. I had a contraction as soon as I got to the sink, held onto the sink and like did a squat through the contraction, and then went and sat on the toilet. Really, I had another contraction while I was on the toilet and I pushed, and she kind of just held her hand there. She was like, it'll be fine. And they got me what's called a birth stool. So I just hopped right over to the birth stool after that contraction. It had to be less than like 10 minutes later that he was born. Less than maybe even 5. Oh, I had a few pushes on the birth stool and I could feel him crowning. Once we were on the birth stool, I could really feel him, like, his head coming out and that burning sensation of like your skin. I wouldn't call it the ring of fire because I don't think it was that intense, like, because he wasn't out. But I think my least favorite part about pushing is the part where like their head goes down and then it comes back and then it goes down and it comes back, and it feels like you've got something stuck there, because you do, and it won't come out, and it's super uncomfortable. And that is the part that I didn't like the most about like him specifically. I remember feeling it with Gabriel too, and I didn't love it, but it was still better than the contraction pain, so I just really was like, whatever, it's fine. But with him, it was just a lot, super uncomfortable, and I was like, okay. And she was telling me that she could see his head, and then she was like, okay, the next contraction, his head was crowning. And I was like, that's it. He's not going back inside if his head is crowning. I'm getting him all the way out. So I pushed him through that. And she was like, his head's out. And I was like, really? That's the hardest part. I did it. Okay, great. Like, felt so much better. Okay, sat there for a minute. Next contraction, pushed the rest of his body out. I don't even think I sat there for a minute. It was less than a minute, because he was fully out at 10 a.m., like pretty much exactly, like maybe a couple of seconds into 10 a.m. Apparently he had a loose body cord, and then she gave him up to me, and I took him and I put him on my chest. Everyone pretty much saw that he was a boy before I did, but no one said anything. Thank goodness. I'm glad I didn't need to tell them, even though I kind of did. I remember mentioning it, but I don't know that I told anyone explicitly. But no one said anything. I got to look. It was great. I said that we had a boy, and it was fabulous. And you get the rush of hormones afterwards, and you just feel so amazing. And I did. I truly did feel so amazing. I was exhausted, but it was amazing. And he was out, and it was good, and it was all good, and everything was good. And I laid back on Gregory for a little while, and she's like, you can sit up. And I was like, can I sit up? Do I have the muscle strength for that? And I did, surprisingly. And after I sat myself up, I was like, okay, I can do this. We sat there for a little while. I wanted to take the bra that I was wearing off. So we did, so that I could do skin to skin. And it was really good. We got a towel on him, which was awesome. And it was just it was good. And then we got up, and I was able to walk to the bed with assistance, obviously. And I was able to just hold him as we walked to the bed, which was super awesome. Got in the bed. They checked me out. I had a minor tear in the perineum, which is fine. It stopped bleeding, didn't need stitches, just what I was hoping for. And the recovery on that one, totally fine. Really did not have much pain at all with it. I tore up with Gabriel and down with him. I didn't tear with Azariah, but with him I tore down, and it was just like the difference between tearing up and tearing down is like a night and day difference. Like towards your butt versus like up. Ooh, it's so easy. It's so much easier. Like if you tear down to like, as long as it's not inside. Ugh. Anyway, I think it was like 20 minutes later, we delivered the placenta, and part of it got stuck. So she pushed on my stomach. That was super uncomfortable. But I felt one clot kind of come out, and then she's like, I can't. She was like checking it out, and she's like, I can't tell if there's another piece that's stuck in there or if that's just some other clotting or like what's going on. But I'm going to keep an eye on it. I want you to try, pushing again on the next, like, after contraction, which was like 5 minutes later, maybe. And then she pushed on my stomach again. Oh, it hurt, but I felt the other clot come out. And she goes, oh yeah, that's perfect. That's what I was looking for. So after that, it was all good. And I stopped the active bleeding. And we were just able to sit and relax. And I got to order myself a waffle from a friend of mine who is his godmother, who got to know that he was a boy. We didn't tell her his name until because we hadn't picked his name and everything got ordered and whatnot. We got his name and we just chilled. We picked his name out, had a good time, quiet by ourselves. I felt great. I was like, everything feels so much better. This is amazing. I was so awake and alive and happy and I felt good. And then I was like, okay, I'm ready to go take a shower now. So as soon as they were able to, because they had some appointments that came in, and since, I was good to go and just chilling there, they took their appointments. After those appointments were done, the nursing assistant to the midwife came in and I transferred him to Gregory, and she came and stood with me in the shower because you can't be unattended, which is totally fine. I didn't want to fall down and die. I don't even care at that point. Like, I was just showering, Showered up. She helped me get, like, the diaper with the pad on it, put that on, dry off, I think I just put a bra on and walked back to the bed. I had gotten him to latch twice at that point, and he nursed for a little bit on one side, which was great. So I knew I wouldn't need to do it again until we got home, because he was just pretty content. And then after that, the midwife came in and did all of his stuff, and his second check that they do like a couple hours after they're born, or an hour or whatever. He was good. He got weighed, measured, all that good stuff. We got him changed, put him in his outfit, got him in his car seat, and then I finished getting like fully dressed, and my other friend arrived with the waffle. I ate my waffle and we left. It was a really good experience. I wish that I would have known, like, even as a third-time mom, saying like, I wish I would have known how to push more effectively and like be fully aware of what that feeling feels like and be able to remember it, because everything was just such a blur with Azariah, and with Gabriel it was so much more intense, so it wasn't fully accurate. It was just, I could feel my contractions, but I couldn't tell. The whole pushing part of Gabriel was just a different experience. Now that I know like what I need to effectively push, it would have been nice if I could have done that the whole time and shortened that part of the labor. I think that would have been like the only real change I would have liked to make. But by the time that I made that realization that like, oh, we need to go to the birth center, by the time that like we would have contacted everyone, gotten everyone there, all that good stuff, I would have been pushing in the car. So I'm glad we didn't go home, and I'm glad that we went in the night before, and just how everything went. And honestly, even though I was like laboring the night before, my labor totally stopped while I was sleeping for those few hours. In terms of like, I didn't feel anything, I don't count it. I don't think it counts. So his labor was like just the 6 hours, in my opinion, from when I was up at 4 a.m. to when he was born at 10 a.m. 6 hours and 5 minutes, whatever. So it was really good. It was really intense, and there was some pain to it. And I put some clips in the birth video of like me being loud or going through contractions or things like that, just to kind of show you that like what it sounded like. But I didn't exclusively want to do the like sounds of labor, because although it's great and wonderful, when I was right at the end of my pregnancy with him, I watched a birth video that had like just her in labor, and she's very loud, and there's nothing wrong with that. I am again also very loud, but it just made me nervous, and I was like, I don't want to feel nervous. So that was kind of the choice that I made with that. But it felt a lot more intense on the inside than it sounded on the outside and looked. And that made me like hearing the reassurance of good, you have a loose jaw, and good, you know, you're listening to your body and you're doing all these things. And you got, like, I got through labor really fast. It was great. It was all good. Intense, crazy. I said a lot of things during labor that, like, I don't remember all of them, but like the things that I said, I generally remember and knew what I was saying. But a lot of people were like, the people that were there, like at one point in time, I asked for counter pressure during a contraction, and it just made, like, it was so relieving, and it was at the end, and I said, oh, thank you. And they all just kind of giggled at me because they were like, that's sounds about right. And I was like, it felt better. 10 out of 10 experience. Will do again. All of the things that, like, people are afraid of, right? Like it being too painful or too intense. Like if you're afraid of it, yeah, it's going to be too intense. Knowing that it will be at that point really intense, and you'll be like, okay, I'm done. And you can't be done because you're not done yet. Like, yeah, it happens. You get there. But it's worth it in terms of like the feeling that you get after your baby is born. And not that you can't have that with like medicated birth, but it is inhibited in a way that it just can't be avoided because you've got drugs in your body, right? Like it's an inhibitor. It's not going to feel the same. And the recovery is going to be different. Good, bad, the ugly, like it's going to be different. That doesn't make it a bad choice. But if it's something that you want to do, if you believe you can, if you prepare yourself, you will. And you will feel like giving up, and you will feel done, but you will get there. And in the moment, right afterwards, you might not want to do it ever again. Or you might be like, yeah, let's do that again. But it will also feel fabulous. And it's very worth it for more than just like the baby. In my brain, the ability that I had to process this birth, and that I was very aware of it, even though I would say it was probably the more intense like birth part, like the pushing and all of that was the most intense out of all of the kids. It was still super healing in a way. Like I didn't really necessarily have birth trauma prior to that, or now for that matter, but it's still like just healed my abilities in my brain. It was good. It was so good. I felt good. I still feel good. Recovery's been awesome. I don't have any complaints. That's Mr. Finn's birth story. I don't have the pictures back from his birth yet, and we went and took newborn pictures, but there's a lot of them. So it always takes a little while. I never want to rush it because she does such good work. They're awesome. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed. We'll see you next time. Love, Genevieve.